I'm going to progress now by trying to create a more harmonious feel in terms of the colour scheme anyway, and I'm thinking in particular about the two columns running down the left just below our navigation and over at the right running down in that calendar column. But before we make any adjustments, make sure you are looking at your index page and not the shops page we ended up with in the last lesson. To be fair, there's nothing actually wrong with the colours at the moment with that sort of sandy brown colour. You could argue that that different colour does help to make distinct those two columns. However, for a sense of uniformity, I am going to change those column colours. And I'm going to change the colours so that they match pretty much anyway that green colour that we have for our navigation menu background. And by doing this, it gives me an opportunity to introduce you to something called the CSS Designer. So, let's get started. First of all, I'm going to place my cursor within this column. I'll place it at the beginning of this sentence. And then, by coming down to my Properties Inspector, well, you'll notice if you are looking at the CSS tab that we have these two tabs here, Edit Rule and CSS Designer. Well, if I select this CSS Designer button now, this is going to open up my CSS panel. And the CSS panel we now see over within our panel group over on the right there. The distinct CSS Designer tab being part of this panel collection. And within this collection, you can see we have these options: Sources, At Media, and Selectors. Well, I want to open up Selectors, so I'll click on that. And within here, we now see all these rules. And the particular rule that I want to focus on is this one here. This one labelled as Aside. And once I do select this, then you'll notice in the Properties panel below that we are given visual tools that allow us to change or adjust particular properties relevant to this Aside selector. And you'll notice right down here at the foot, we can see that our background colour is set with this hexadecimal number. And we can also see a little square there displaying the actual colour itself. By the way, you'll also see the relevant tags for this page running across here. And there is the one that we are focusing on, Aside. If you select it, then you can see that that particular content area, our latest news area, is immediately highlighted. And therefore, if you wanted to do it this way, then you could come back over to Selectors and select the relevant tag that you want, this one, Aside. And then right down at the bottom once more, well, we can see that our background colour is set to this hexadecimal number, as I pointed out a few moments ago. So let's go about changing this. I'm going to click on it to open this colour palette. I'm sure you've seen how these work before. You can adjust with the various sliders what actual colour that you want. However, if you come to the bottom right corner here and select this colour picker, well, that means you can now click somewhere on your page to pick up a specific colour that you want to use. Therefore, I'm going to do that. I'll come over to our menu, and as soon as I roll over the menu here, then automatically our colour palette updates to reflect that that's the particular colour that I want to use. And as soon as I left click here on this green, then we see it updated within our colour palette. Now, in all honesty, in reality I would probably leave it like this. However, just so I can show you that we can adjust this on the fly, as it were, and also so I can choose a slightly modified version of this green, then by coming over here to our colour palette, where that circle is, if I left click on it, I can move it slightly so I get a slightly different version of the green. So if I just take it up here slightly to the left, my end result will be I do get a similar green colour for our columns at the left and right, but there is still a subtle difference that allows those two columns to stand out slightly compared to the navigation. Anyway, I'll leave that up to you to decide what you want to do with your colour here. But once you are decided, just deselect by clicking in a blank area, down here in the Properties Inspector for example. And once you do, then immediately those two columns with their content area for our latest news and the calendar content area over on the right now pick up and take on that green shade. Right, I want to save this, so I'll go up to File and down to Save. Now I do have to say there is one drawback of doing it like this. Yes, I have changed the colour for those two content areas for our home page, but I haven't changed those column colours for any of our other pages. So really what we should be doing is creating a CSS rule that all the pages pick up from. That would save us some time. However, I'm not going to do that because there is a flexibility of leaving all the other pages at their existing colours, and perhaps to help distinguish all the different pages from our home page, maybe I would subtly change the colours for those content areas to be something different, maybe a light blue or a pale yellow or whatever. So as I say, perhaps an external CSS rule file would unify all the pages, but if that's not what you want, then you can simply change it internally here by using the CSS designer for each individual page. Now let's have a look at this in our browser. So let's preview it, and one way to preview is to come up to your File button and then roll down here to where it says Preview in Browser. And then you'll see a flyout giving you various options of the particular browser that you want to use. Now unfortunately at this screen resolution that flyout has just gone off my page, however you can still see that there is a shortcut there, F12. So on the PC, if you want to use Internet Explorer as your browser to preview this, then you could either hit F12 or you could simply roll over it and select it, which is what I'm going to do. And there we go, my browser opens up. And we can now see the subtle difference in shade of green there for the content area here on the left, and also on the right. But just to reiterate what I was saying a moment ago about all the other pages not having their content areas change colour because we've only changed the colour for our index page, well, if I use the navigation to select our shops page by clicking on here, well, you'll now see we do go to our shops page, but our content areas on the left and on the right revert back to that sandy brown colour. And as a reminder, if I go back to my home page by clicking on Home, well, there you can see again the green colour that we've just introduced by using the CSS designer. Right, I'm going to revert back to Dreamweaver, and I'm doing this only because our footer down here at the bottom is also a different colour. Well, let me show you another way of adapting the colour scheme by changing the colour of our footer now. If I move my cursor to it, and then left click so that I'm within the footer area, and then come down to the selector area below, then by selecting our footer tag, well, as you can see, that now focuses our attention on the whole of the footer, which is reflected in our properties inspector. Well, you'll see down here in the background colour, well, there is that exact colour. If I want to change it, well, this works in pretty much the same way as we saw a few moments ago, in that if I select this colour picker square, the colour palette opens once more. Therefore, if I choose our colour picker down here in the bottom right once again, then as I've said before, we can simply choose the colour that we want to use. Now it might be the green there, or we might want to choose the blue of this sky from this photograph. I'll do that first of all. I'll left click on the sky here, and then if I deselect by clicking in a blank area somewhere, here for example, then we now see our footer area takes on that exact same blue colour that is featured for the sky in that photograph. Now I don't really want it to be blue, although there's no harm in it, but I do want to make it the same colour green that we have got for our columns. So I'll left click in our footer area once more and then come down to this footer tag. And I'll go through the same process. I'll click on our background colour square here and then choose our colour picker again, and then come over to the green within this column and click. I'll deselect by clicking in a blank area, and there we go. There is the exact same colour green that we've used in our columns, but now also used within our footer area down here. Right, I'm going to finish off by saving this. I'll run up to File and then down to Save. Let's preview this again. I'm going to open up my browser, and then if I move down to the bottom of the page, well, there we go. Of course, our background colour for our footer matches completely our left and right columns. Although when I say it matches completely our columns, well, yes, it does match the content area, but you'll notice just behind our content area on the left-hand side here, we still partially see that there is some sandy brown creeping through. So let's sort that out. I'll go back over to Dreamweaver. Here you can see that sandy brown in between our menu and our content area for the latest news. And in fact, if I scroll right down to the foot of our page, well, you can see it more prominently there. So let's rectify this. What I need to do is come down here and I need to select this where it says div.sidebar1. When I select this, then you can see that what I am selecting is not just the content area, but also everything behind it too. Which means in my Properties Inspector, I can click on this CSS Designer button once more. And then over in our CSS Designer panel, we now see the overall background colour is still set to that sandy brown. Therefore, if I left click on that little square there to call up our colour palette, I could then choose our colour picker. And then, so it matches completely our content area, the green of our content area, I'll left click here, and then by deselecting by clicking in a blank area, well, we now see that background completely matches the content area green as well. And also if I scroll back up to the top by using my vertical scroll bar, we can see that that smaller area that was that sandy brown a moment ago, of course now takes on the identical green colour, consequently providing a smoother look. Let me save it again. I'll come up to File and then roll down to Save. Okay, we're done. We've now seen how the CSS Designer works when we want to choose a different colour for a particular area within our page.